Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Sorry we're a little bit late, but this is the we're now talking. It's time for the indie spotlight of this week, and we are talking about another film from 2014. We're gonna, even though we didn't talk much about Jude Law on the last broadcast, we're gonna do another Jude Law movie. He was in Spy, and he's also in this movie, tonight's movie, Hemingway. I'm Jonathan Betzler, one of your hosts for this evening. It's time for J Money's drinking wine. It's time for me to open the Rolling Rock. So, especially,
I'm drinking a Michelada because it is summer.
Oh, look at that. That's nice. That's our boy J Money.
It's good. I'm good. It's good. Everything's good.
And there's Drunk Davie.
The only one not drinking.
The only one that's not drinking.
The most sober among us, Drunk Davie.
Right. Well, that's the irony. That's the fun part. We're talking about Dom Hemingway. Now, those of you that are our hugest fans that have watched our Oscar preview may remember that I brought up this movie during our Oscar preview when we were talking about Best Actor candidates, and we had this segment where we said should have been nominated, and that's where I brought up Jude Law's performance in Dom Hemingway. I'm recommending this film. We're getting towards the end of the 2014 films, at least indies that I'm recommending. My recommendations for the next few episodes are not going to be as, ardent as previous ones. Although I do like Dom Hemingway, and I think it's a character-driven, I want to say performance-driven film between him and Richard Grant. These two guys watched it over the last couple weeks. Drunk Davie, why don't you go first? What'd you think?
Well, I mean, if you're talking about a performance, Jude Law it's amazing. It's a tour de force. He's incredible, and the writing in this movie I thought was great. The dialogue in this movie is great. The opening monologue is hysterical and profane and hysterical, and it's the one thing that will stick with you 5-10 years from now is that the start of this movie.
Wow, 10 years. That's a lot of faith in this movie. J Money.
Why do I feel like Davy Joe is going to try to commit the opening monologue to memory to his life whenever he needs to? It's a good thing to say right before you go into court. I guess what I'd say is I'd like this movie, and I would agree with everything you said in terms of the quality of the performances involved, because it really is a performance-driven movie. It's really about Jude Law doing a thing. I don't think there's much else going on in this movie, unfortunately. So, for me, it's a middle-of-the-road movie for me. I enjoyed it. I guess I would recommend somebody to watch it, but it's not gonna rise to the top of my list for the year in general.
Would you guys agree with? It sounds like Davy Joe would. I actually named Jude Law's performance the best of the year over Theory of Everything's Eddie Redmayne and Michael Keaton. Now that you've seen this movie, would you guys concur with that?
It's as good. It's definitely better than Eddie Redmayne. But Keaton I liked. But they're both. I'd tell you what, Jude Law. I thought I would have been completely happy had he been nominated and won.
One thing that I wanted to maybe ask you guys about on it, Davy Joe liked the dialogue. I actually thought the structure of the screenplay was good and interesting. I mean, if I had any, I thought that maybe the direction was just a little. It didn't necessarily fit the tone of the performance in some cases. I mean, the performance was at a different level than the directing necessarily. Like in one of the films we talked about, the top 5 just now, Amelie, where the performance and the direction sort of matched each other, and I feel like Jude Law was at a 9 and the directing was like at a 6. But I thought the screenplay was interesting, not just the dialogue. I thought the structure was interesting, how it sort of wove through. It was episodic to a degree, but still maintained his arc. You know what I'm saying?
Well, do you feel like, because I guess for me, part of the issue with this movie and me is that I feel like he didn't really have much of an arc. I guess I didn't really feel like there was much movement in his character one way or the other. I think they were trying to suggest there was, but I don't feel like they actually ever showed it.
Well, I think what they showed is like efforts to efforts for him to change, but sort of suggesting, like something like Leaving Las Vegas, where there's an arc and then the arc fails. You know what I mean? Like the attempted arc, which I think
I guess what I would say is that a lot of his discussion, a lot of his monologue with himself about it, his attempt to change himself seemed like it was exactly on par with everything else about his character that you could already kind of glean from the way he was producing it. Like it didn't really feel like there was ever a change in his life. It felt like it was a lot of the same kind of throughout it. But I want to go back to the thing you just said about tone, JB, because I think one of the other things about this movie that threw me off is that I'm really not sure what this movie was trying to be. If it was trying to be reflective on this guy's life, if it was trying to just be funny, because ultimately it is pretty funny. It doesn't really necessarily show a lot of serious consequences as much as it shows, some tragic events. I guess for me, I kept getting thrown off because to me the movie felt like it was ping-ponging between trying to have a serious commentary about the nature of this guy's lifestyle and also celebrating this guy's lifestyle. I couldn't really figure out where it was trying to land.
Well, that's an interesting point of view. Personally, for me, I felt like it was just exploring this guy's lifestyle, if that makes any sense. I mean, I don't necessarily think it was one way or the other, sort of recommending it or not. I think it was just sort of like.
Well, but I feel like there were scenes that were really definitely celebrating him. I mean, there were scenes where they were cashing in on his sort of his grandiose nature. I mean, that was just part of it, certainly. But then there also seemed to be.
I'm curious before you go forward. Define cashing in. Like, what do you mean by that?
I think there were a lot of scenes that were set up to kind of celebrate the way that he was larger than life, and it wasn't like the film was looking at this and saying, how crazy is this guy? The film was looking at him and saying, how great is the fact that he is like this? Because it is amusing. There's a lot of entertainment in there. I feel like the fact that they were using.
I think some of the entertainment suggests. I mean, I think the film definitely suggests he's not the most intelligent, person or as smart or tough as he thinks he is. I mean, I think there's certainly moments that the film and the screenplay suggest that. I mean, I don't think it puts them on this pedestal. That's what I like about the performance is that it's extremely flawed, even from not just from an external judgmental point of view, but even like Richard E. Grant's character and others. They're
but you're always. I agree that he's flawed, but you're always set up to kind of root for him. And I also feel like he always lands on his feet in this movie. I don't feel like you're ever really seeing him go through a point where he has to sacrifice. You don't really ever see him come around.
It's roughed up a little bit, as I recall.
But he's fine in the end. He's roughed up a little bit numerous times, but he always also comes out on the other end of it actually having profited in some way. So
and what do you take from that necessarily? What's the moral of the story then?
What do I take from the fact? Well, that's what I'm saying. I don't think that it really had a point of view about the moral, and I don't really think it has to have it shouldn't be about morality as far as I'm concerned either. I'm saying is that. I mean, I'm using the word morals flippantly. I mean, I wasn't necessarily thinking it needs to be didactic in that sense. I was more suggesting that. I do think the fact that he lands on his feet in that such a way and sort of bungles his way to the point where he's on his feet. I think that does suggest a point of view, from a sort of a large long view. The point of view to me in that situation is the celebration of the entertainment of this character. I mean, I guess I don't feel like he was necessarily. I mean, I think that they were trying to show some sort of gritty realism to him, but at the end of the day, he was also cartoonish in a lot of ways, and I don't really know how much realism you could really say is in there. I think that he was a caricature that you kind of enjoyed watching, even if you watched him be, going through some sort of rectification with what he was doing, even if you watched him not doing well, even if you watched him go through some hardships, it was still the kind of character that you felt like was fun. It wasn't like you were learning something from his hardship necessarily, which is fine. I don't have a problem with that. I guess for me, it just seems like there were points in this movie where he was incredibly navel-gazy, and I don't really know why. Because I don't really feel like there was any payoff from that point of view. Yeah, I mean, I feel like, I disagree with you from one point of view. I mean, or maybe not. I mean, the word caricature implies that there wasn't dimension. And what I think about this character is I think that there's definitely scenery chewing in a very fulfilling way. And Davy Joe, maybe you want to mute again, because there was scenery chewing in a very fulfilling way. But I do think that there was dimensions to this character. I do think that there was, all the flaws added up, and between his relationship with his daughter,
Emilia Clarke, who I didn't think was super great in this movie. But
she wasn't given anything. I mean, she was really very backgroundy. That whole relationship was really not explored at all. I mean, I think that's a part of the things I actually have a problem with, is the fact that they set that up as being a really big part of the storyline, but they really didn't do anything with it.
Well, I mean, I don't disagree with that. And again, my thumbs up for this one is more marginal than some of the other ones that like The Hunt and Force Majeure that I really really feel strongly about. Davey Joe, you haven't said anything in a while. You can unmute and tell me what you think.
No, it's I see where J Money's coming from, and I think I think it's like I said before, it's a completely performance for me. It's a completely performance-driven movie, and I kind of, but that was fine for me. I just thought that it was kind of a platform for Jude Law to just be awesome. I don't know that. I don't know that much else is going to stick with me later on.
I have to say that I was fully engaged and entertained. And I'm not trying to say that it should be a Best Picture nominee or anything like that. Or I'm not trying to say it was a great film. I think it was a solidly good film, with great performances.
Yeah, but the story's fine. I mean, it's good enough to get you through it, but it's not like I was really invested in anything other than really just seeing how he played it.
Yeah.
But it was that good though that it was fine, and it was plenty, and it was really I
think we're mostly saying a lot of the same thing. It's just a matter of degrees. I think it sounds like I was maybe a little more invested than you guys. I mean, again, I liked a lot of the dealings with Demi and Bashir, and the other performance that I mean, Jude Law is scene stealing, but I mean, a great foil for him, Richard E. Grant, I thought was really really strong.
Yeah, definitely.
And back to his. Have you guys seen With Nail and I, the '80s British film?
Been meaning to see that for so long.
I mean, he's transcendent in that movie, and he's sort of like, it's a very different character. Or it'd be interesting. You could make the argument that the With Nail and I character could grow up to be this guy, but.
Right.
Do you think this guy was ever a failed actor, this Richard E. Grant character in this movie? If so, then maybe he's playing the same character. But I mean, I think he is the perfect yin to the yang of Jude Law in this movie, and I think that helps the movie a lot. So. I mean, again, I don't want to trumpet this movie too much. I frequently find myself playing devil's advocate, and I just want to be clear to the audience that I don't want to call this movie outstanding. I enjoyed it better than Spy, for example, and I definitely agree with all of us. I think we're all in agreement that the best part about it is the performances, by far. I agree with what Davey said is that the story is good enough. And I was intrigued by a lot of the story. I thought the structure itself was interesting, like the sort of episodic nature of it in some ways. But it didn't blow my mind, but I thought it was, and I think the phrase that Davey used was good enough, and I guess I'm on board with that.
Yeah, I guess I would agree. I think that it really is a movie about a performance, or about two different performances maybe, and it's great that Jude Law is capable enough to really carry it, because he has to. If it wasn't somebody nearly as competent as him, I don't know if it would have been nearly as interesting to watch. I have two things to say, JB, though. Just one quickly. I'd like to give a shout out to this movie for having some excellent costume design. It was a thing that you don't necessarily think about as much, because it's not like they were doing anything crazy with the dress. But I think that the outfits that they got for the characters were so amazingly spot on, and actually did things to help build the characters themselves.
Production design too. I thought the production design was really strong.
Production design as well. Production design was excellent in this movie. There's a lot of stylistic decisions in this movie that I think were really enjoyable to watch, and I think that's one of the reasons I think it even succeeds as well as it does. The other thing, JB, is I have a question for you. How would you feel if Jason Statham's character in Spy had been taken over by Jude Law's character in Dom Hemingway?
If you think Jude Law and Jason Statham switched parts in Spy?
No, I'm saying if Jude Law was doing his Dom Hemingway as the character that Jason Statham played in Spy, so if he was kind of this bombastic, pompous
I
Englishman.
mean, I would love that because I mean, like, I would believe the character. You know what I mean? Like, it was not about the character in Spy. It was about the performance. And Jude Law is an accomplished actor, and quite frankly, I think an underrated actor. Only 2 Oscar nominations to his name, and he probably deserved a couple more. And there's a movie called Contagion, which is an ensemble, and I just thought he was outstanding in that as well.
I absolutely agree. He's great in that movie. He's great in a lot of things. I think people, people were quick to dismiss him for being a pretty boy, but honestly, he has so many great aspects to the things he does.
Last year, I actually lobbied for him to get a supporting actor Oscar nomination for a movie I disliked very much called Anna Karenina. Joe Wright's Anna Karenina. Jude Law in the complete opposite of Dom Hemingway. So far the other end of the spectrum. He was outstanding in a subtle, small, mostly like dialogue-less role.
Yeah.
He's outstanding, and he's sort of like a cuckolded husband character in Anna Karenina. I assume you guys haven't seen it.
I haven't seen it.
Davy Joe's on mute, so it's just funny him like his facial expressions. I just want to let you guys know that I forgot to download the photos for this, so while we were talking, I was able to download the photos and put them up. So it was just in time. I just want a little bit of props for managing to juggle that much. Do you guys have any close? I mean, I think we've covered a lot, and I'd love to get a jump on the next segment. Do you guys have you covered all you want to cover about Dom Hemingway?
Yeah. I would add that I really like the soundtrack, but other than that, no.
Yeah.
That's a great thing to add. What was the second thing? Oh, what was the second thing aside from the costume design? J Money,
I was asking you about just whether or not you appreciated switching the roles, because I feel like he might have had some of the characteristic and the way that he followed through on it, the way that you were looking for that role for Statham.
Certainly, the baseless self-confidence is a connection between the two characters.
But also,
and
you feel like
the time is up.
Oh, okay.
No, sorry. Make one last statement.
Well, I just think he was doing the more natural way of doing it that I think you were looking for from Statham, right?
That's exactly right. I almost feel like now you understand what I was saying about Jason Statham's performance.
Yeah, I still haven't changed my opinion about it, but yes, I understand what you're saying.
Okay. Davy Joe, you good? All right. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm very excited about the next segment, Classic Movie of the Week. I pointed, I wasn't on camera. The Classic Movie of the Week is coming up next, and it's this movie behind me, so tune in. It's the Charlie Chaplin's The Great Dictator, his first talking film. For those of you that figured it out from our teasing and from our, I can't imagine any of you figured it out. So tune in about 6 minutes. You'll see us. That is 10 o'clock Eastern Time, 7 o'clock Pacific. We will see you then. Thanks for talking to us about Dom Hemingway. And next up, in about 6 minutes, we're going to talk about The Great Dictator. See you then.